Hi, welcome to today's vlog, and I'm going to spend a bit of time today looking at the concept of should I stay or should I go to the office, or probably more importantly, what should organisations be doing to foster the right working environments for their staff. It's kind of appreciated that COVID has kind of become less of a talking point now, but I think there are still a large number of organisations battling with the burden of how staff should work. And should they be remote, or should they be encouraged to go into an office? Should it be based on role, how motivative and innovative staff are when they're either working from home or working at an office? Um, at the back end of 2022, offering flexibility was critical because there was an overabundance of roles in the market and not enough people filling them. But as we move into a more recessionary type environment, I think it's become a little bit of a different approach, and we're seeing all sorts of things from organisations as they kind of go through this period of wanting to recruit staff, who they should be recruiting, how they do it, and so on. So I'm going to spend kind of time discussing 3 points today. Looking at the case for office work, i.e. should people go to an office, the case for remote work, and also the challenges that go with remote work, and then just draw that together with a bit of a conclusion. So looking at the case for office work, I kind of had this concept during lockdown where of what I call the 2 plus 2 equals 5. Now I appreciate my maths may be a little bit out here, but the idea was, and I came up with it when I realised that the way I work best as a person is when I'm engaged with other people, when I'm talking to them. I have the ideas as part of the conversations that go on, whether that's in a broader meeting or whether that's in a single. So the idea for me came that 2 plus 2 can equal 5 when people work in that type of environment. The challenge I would place is that in a remote working environment, it's highly unlikely that you'll get the 2 plus 2 equals 4. The tools out there now, whether it be Teams or Zoom, are really brilliant at kind of pulling people together, and a lot of them have grown over that period to give you a much better experience. But they still don't match that experience of being in the same place at the same time as someone and actually getting together. Second point here is around size of business. And this is where something I've seen interestingly as I've moved into a consulting world and looking at some of the businesses that I'm working with. And that concept of actually the smaller organisations tend to draw people to an office because it provides the right environment to allow them to have to grow the business and bring people together. As organisations expand and up to the point of the size of some of the biggest organisations in the country, which are usually geographically spread, those kind of concepts of office work become a little bit more difficult to kind of work with. But I think fundamentally, having people in an office in a smaller environment often kind of allows people to draw the best and give the best ideas. We've obviously got documented evidence of that push and pull of kind of organisations trying to get people back into the office, and I'll only draw kind of sight of the messages Jacob Rees-Mogg left around offices where he was kind of saying, I've been here today, I kind of expect to see you in, and kind of how how getting people to work in an office is often a very difficult thing. So let's now have a look at some of the case for remote work. The first one, and I think the biggest one on this, is the flexibility of work-life balance. I've kind of always held this belief that it doesn't matter when you work as long as you get your job done. I've had both night owls and early birds who kind of work in the teams I've been looking after, and all of them, you foster them to do that work by allowing them to perform when they want to and when they're at their best. The only thing that I kind of always throw into this is you have to anticipate that just because you're prepared to work it out of those normal hours, the people that you're dealing with, your customers, and particularly working in customer service organisations, don't necessarily work that way. Imagine a plasterer, because they're a night owl, turning up at your house at 9 p.m. to do the work for you. I'm not sure that necessarily works, and obviously that can be broadened to apply. So I kind of always held the line on this of Doesn't matter when you work, how you work, but you must anticipate the requirements that your customers bring to you. The second around the case for remote work is productivity, and there was a 2015 survey by SHRM that said that 77% of remote employees reported greater productivity, with 30% reporting that they get more done in less time. These things are kind of really interesting, and by adopting those remote friendly policies, you can empower your employees to perform work and around the preferences that they have, and often they will deliver better for you. So that's kind of the case for remote work, but it obviously brings a number of challenges when you do look at it. The first, and kind of one of the biggest, I've got the luxury of sitting in a nice office kind of looking at it, but not everyone has that luxury. And I would always comment, should someone's bedroom be their office? You've got to kind of appreciate that not everyone is in that position, and that varies depending on age and what stages you are at in your life, around what's available to you and whether you will have space to do that. There's also the concept of isolation and loneliness, and if you go back to what I was saying about my best ideas come when I'm working with people, I've also kind of found that view of being lonely isn't one that is particularly easy to shake. And if you kind of imagine in kind of previous lifetimes, it used to be the case that you would be more likely to meet your partner at work because you shared similar things that you were doing. In a remote working environment, how does that happen? And that kind of on its own is enough to consider. But when you take this on a more serious note, the suicide rate at the moment in the UK is highest in men between the ages of 45 and 50. And ensuring people maintain company, have the ability to talk to people face to face, I think is something that could be seen as a real influence on this. And you've got to ask, how do you maintain that when people work at home? So these things all kind of throw into some of the challenges of remote working. So in conclusion, I guess there are a number of points to kind of look at here. The first, I think, is don't get people into an office just because you paid a long lease on it. That won't create either the right environment or any of those things to happen. You need to invest and create an office environment which allows those 2 + 2 = 5 to happen, and really work to kind of drive that. The second is offer flexibility and trust. It's the right thing to do in the modern world, particularly where both people in a house work, to ensure that your organisation offers the flexibility to allow people to go to the gym, attend their children's assembly, or kind of do anything else. Make sure that people doing DIY now, make sure that all those things can happen. If you trust in people, they will invest in your organisation and give you more. And you'll probably find that they choose to be in an office when it's appropriate and to work at home when it's also appropriate. Ensure staff are monitored, and what I don't mean by this is tracking and policing them. What I mean by this is keeping an eye on them. Make sure that if you're in a management culture where you've got many staff kind of working remotely, that you maintain the one-to-ones, you're checking on people's sanity and making sure that you've got an idea of what they're doing. And also bring those teams together. Make sure there's, even if there's not a reason to go to an office, that you bring your teams in and actually kind of bring them all together and allow everyone to talk to everything else. And you'll quite often see that people use WhatsApp groups for trading messages backwards and forwards and stuff like that. And those things all kind of add up. And the last one on this, and I couldn't kind of leave this in a presentation on this, given what I do in the modern workplace environment I've worked in, is make sure you provide the right to digital tools for the job. Provide the right tools with the flexibility to allow people to work where's most appropriate for them at a point in time when they're doing it. Don't lock them into locations by the technology that you provide, and equip people appropriately. Brilliant. Well, thanks for spending the time watching this. Obviously, if you feel like you want to learn more, hit the subscribe button, but also at the same time, really interested to hear any comments, because I think this is something where there's crossed opinions across most things, and it would be really interesting to hear what people think. Thanks very much, and I'll see you again soon.